survivors who gave evidence at the public ARC hearing. She was 17 when she was sexually abused by her father on a number of occasions, and she initially tried to speak about it to two elders, Elder Ali and Elder Bavdich, and she also approached Bavdich's wife. She told all three, "I want to talk to you about things in my family that you don't know about what my father is doing." Both elders refused to speak to her before she spoke to her father, or without her father being present. Elder Ali agreed that to require a person to speak to her father in the first instance was consistent with the teachings of the organization. Then obviously the ARC happened, so she told her story. She was interviewed on her own by the elders Ali and Vodic on a number of occasions, and she said that she had nobody to support her during the committee interview process, and that the elders offered no emotional support or protection, which we can obviously tell by the other stories too, and the elders handbook. And on at least one occasion, her father was also present. And instead of being protected and supported as a victim of sexual abuse, she felt that the elders sat in judgment of her credibility and made her feel like she's to blame for anything that happened. She said that at one of the meetings, the elders required her to directly confront her father about her allegations. She said that when her father was brought into the room, she felt extremely terrified. In the meeting with her father threatened her verbally and physically and blamed her for seducing him. And so she and her mother went to the elders to tell them about the allegations that BCG's younger sisters made against their father, but the elders did not take those allegations into account when they considered BCG's own allegations. So this is an example how even when there is more than two witnesses, they will twist it just so they can keep these men in the congregations. And Mr. DeRoy told her that the elders could not consider the evidence of her sister's abuse as they were too young to know what they were talking about, and they were not witnesses to the same event. The handwritten notes that Elder Ali took during the Judicial Committee appears to record BCG's mother telling the committee that their father has abused two younger children, possibly two at age 2, and the Watchtower submitted that BCG's allegations about her younger sisters were hearsay allegations. There is no evidence before the Royal Commission.
Sorry about that.
You good? And when they were confronted with the allegations, her father initially denied. He did not confess. He did confess, but not directly to the committee, but to a third party. He was disfellowshipped not on grounds of child sex abuse, but on grounds of loose conduct in relation to extramarital relationships for lying about that relationship. Despite the fact they believed BCG's allegations were true, they concluded that without the confession by her father, they were bound by the two-witness rule biblical principles and did not have enough evidence to take action. Shortly after her father appealed the decision to disfellowship him, an appeal committee was convened. BCG was called to appear alone before the appeal committee, although no one explained to her why. The elders asked her questions, and she had to say everything about the abuse all over again. Her father was again present in the room when she appeared before the committee. He confessed.
You want to keep going, Molly? You're doing so well.
Sure, sorry.
Can you keep
This
going?
story just, for sure, just needed a second to gather myself because I have read the ARC stories, but every time I do it just gets me all kinds of mad and sad and protective over these of these people, because we should take this seriously, even if there's no evidence. And if it turns out to be a lie, then we can address it accordingly. But until it is proven, it's innocent until proven guilty, and guilty until proven innocent too on the same hand. So I do believe that's an important factor. So the appeal committee upheld the decision to disfellowship him for loose conduct and lying, and added the ground of porneia to reflect his confession to gross sexual acts against BCG on 5 or 6 occasions. Despite his admission to the appeal committee, they did not consider reporting the matter to the police. Of course, they didn't. As a result of this, a man they knew to have confessed to child sex abuse was left at large in the community. Less than 8 months after the appeal committee's decision to disfellowship, he applied for reinstatement. BCG wrote to the branch office expressing concern about her father's premature reinstatement, that she was concerned he would sexually abuse other children within the organization. The branch office responded to BCG, telling her that they would investigate the matter, and counseled her to have faith in Jehovah and the elders of the congregation. There is no evidence that the organization took action. The service desk at the branch office wrote to the body of elders asking whether the fact that he had not apologized to BCG was a factor taken into consideration in the decision to reinstate him. BCG decided to leave the Jehovah's Witness organization. As a result, she was shunned, ostracized, and actively avoided by members of her local congregation. And after leaving, BCG reported to the police. The first trial resulted in a hung jury. The second trial was declared mistrial, and the third trial in 2004, he was convicted for the unlawful and indecent assault, attempted rape of BCG, and was sentenced to 3 years of imprisonment. In his congregation, he was restricted from answering at the meetings and giving talks, but the others were not aware of the reason why he was restricted, and they were not aware of any reason to restrict contact with children, despite his established history of child abuse, and they only became aware of his history of child sexual abuse when the criminal proceedings were commenced against him. They failed to take precautions to protect the children in the congregation from the risk of sex abuse. In 2003, despite accepting the truth of the allegations of his 3 daughters, the service desk instructed that they will be disfellowshipped, and the elders disfellowshipped him again for deliberate malicious lying and bearing false witness, and not for child sex abuse. He continued to make repeated applications for reinstatement. Direction has been given to the elders that until he fully acknowledges his sins of child abuse and lying in connection to these offenses, it would be difficult for the committees or the victims to consider that he was repentant. In all of the correspondence in evidence, there does not appear to be a single reference of the consideration of child safety in discussions about whether or not he should be reinstated. BCG told the Royal Commission that during the criminal proceedings against her father, she was terrified that Jehovah would kill her for having reported to the police and for bringing reproach upon Jehovah's name. This is what no one should be made to feel this way. No one, absolutely no one. And I just hope that I do you justice, Shelly.
Well, we do have Shelly here, so we're gonna go ahead and bring Shelly on. Shelly has a video that she wants us to watch. I don't know. I'm gonna go ahead and bring Shelly on, and then we're gonna go ahead and watch the video. Hi, Shelly. You have been hanging with us for 2 hours.
That's fine.
Hi, Shelly.
Thank you so much. In the world to speak to you, so thank you.
Thank you so much
for being here and for trusting us to share your story.
Yes. If I could just say a few thank yous to a few people. I first of all want to say thank you to each of you for continuing to advocate for child sexual abuse within the Jehovah's Witnesses religion, and across all religious institutions. Thank you for being brave and courageous to share your stories, Jennifer, and each of you for what you've shared, because I know it's really difficult to do. I wanted to also applaud all of those in the community that have shared their stories and advocated for change in the Jehovah's Witnesses religion since the Royal Commission. I also wanted to thank those people that contributed, the silent heroes of the Royal Commission that you never hear about. So when I was at the Royal Commission, a lot of people sent in a lot of information, and I'm not talking just from Australia, I'm talking internationally. They were the ones that assisted the Royal Commission in making it a success. And for each of those people that also reported their stories to the Royal Commission, the victims in the Royal Commission and the victims from across all religious institutions, those people, I would like to thank those people for making it a success, because without you, the Royal Commission would not have been successful. And something else I wanted to share with you is that, first of all, I want everybody to know that my story of abuse is not the worst by a long shot. It is just a drop in the bucket, for a lot of other people. And you listen to Jennifer's story and Spencer's story and Chess's story and Molly's story and Emma's friend's story. There are so many of us that have had this happen to us. And I just wanted to reassure everybody that the reason why my story was chosen for the Royal Commission was because I had documented evidence, that's all. It wasn't the worst. And I really wish it had somebody who had the worst experience could have been there, but they asked me to give evidence because I had written to the society and I had been through the 2 judicial committee meetings and I had made a criminal complaint to police and went through court. And that's why they wanted to use my story. So for all of you out there that might feel that your story is insignificant, it's not like that. Not like that at all. Everybody's story is important. I don't care whether your trust was taken you from 1 moment or 10 moments or for years. It's all relevant. So I wanted to say thank you to each of you for doing for being strong and courageous and speaking about it, because it's important to change. It's important. One other thing I need to say is that my views on this live feed are my own personal views and they come from my own personal experience. It's not legal advice. It's just my own personal experience. And so if we could just remember that when I'm talking.
Well, thank you so much, Shelly, for that opening. We told a little bit of your a lot of your story already, and I'm sure we didn't scratch the surface.
Great. Well, I don't have to say it again. So thank you, Molly. You did an awesome job.
Thank you.
So I want to
get together.
I want to give you the floor to say whatever you want to say at this time. I know that we talked a little bit before. Mm-hmm. We actually came on to the line. So I guess we're talking about, backlash. I mean, how did you cope with the backlash that you received from the
my gosh.
everywhere, seemed like all sides?
I don't know what to say. The backlash of the Royal Commission has absolutely destroyed my life. I will say that. I have been re-victimized in my employment. I have been re-victimized by people in the ex-Jehovah's Witness community. I have lost contact with my sisters because I continue to speak against the Jehovah's Witnesses. My aunt, who said she would never, ever, ever back my mother, chose to back my mother. So it's not just affected my life, it's affected my life of my children. I studied since 2011. I averaged about 4 hours sleep a night to get that degree. And the reason why I wanted to get my law degree was to advocate for victims of child sexual abuse. And unfortunately, it's now an issue. So because of the re-victimization of people in the ex-Jehovah's Witness community, particularly in Australia, and me having to defend myself about whether or not I gave consent for certain information to be shared with the Royal Commission, I now have chosen to come public, to clear my name so I can continue practicing law, to make it very, very clear that as much as there's positive effects coming from the Royal Commission, there's also very, very, very negative effects coming from the Royal Commission, and a lot of people exploiting the stories of survivors instead of supporting them. So what I mean by that is a lot of people, and you know what the ex-Jehovah's Witness community is like. It is like, you know, gossip central, if I could say that. So a lot of people knew of other people's stories, and unfortunately, these stories are being shared without the consent of the victims. And I'll talk about a lot of that later, but I think, Spencer, do we want to talk some positives first? So I've lost.
Wherever you want to start.
Okay. Do you want to? Okay.
Start with a consent video?
Yes. So one of the great things about studying law is that, you know, you learn about consent in a legal perspective. So one of the consent videos that I like to show, and this is my most favorite video, and when I saw this video, it's talking about the difference between consensual sex and rape. So when are those lines legally blurred? Like, is it before, after? Has somebody said it? Have they not said it? So that's really what this is talking about. But what I'd like the viewers to look at is how this concept of consent, I mean, it's as simple as a cup of tea. I often think about, my gosh, I invaded other people's privacy when I went preaching. On a Sunday, I went into the privacy of their yard. I'm going, but hey, you wanted to talk to me the other week about this. I'm here for a return visit. And they would overcome their objections and say, hey, look, they'd be really polite to us as Jehovah's Witnesses and say, hey, I'm not really interested. I've got my own religion. But unfortunately, the Watchtower has indoctrinated us with abusive behaviour. Now, what you're seeing in here as the alternative is similar to what you spoke about earlier, Spencer, is about abusive behaviour. So abusive behaviour is when you're not allowing another person to have a choice, whether that be a choice about what they wear, what medical treatment they receive, whether or not they want to hear the Jehovah's Witness message, and they go, hey, well, we're not really interested, you know. So this is the flip side of it. So when you're looking at this, try and take a different perspective rather than just a cup of tea or rape. Think about when a person expresses their right to consent as to whether or not they want to share explicit details of their sexual assault. And you've heard today how devastating and how traumatic it has been for victims, what they've already been through, and how much their consent has been ripped away from them, not once, but over and over and over in their lives. This is important to survivors. And I say, and I want to just make this really clear, like victims of consent, I don't consider myself a survivor, because, you know, the effects of child sexual abuse, and I'm sure each of you will agree with me on this, the effects of not being able to sleep through one night goes right through your life. It is not over. I struggle with the feelings of self-harm every single day of my life. I have to fight it. I have strategies in place, and I've successfully done that. But what is concerning to me is that people think, hey, you know, you've survived the actual assault, but the effects of having your trust ripped away from you, from your parents, from your family, from your religion, and being shoved under the carpet, or you being silenced, or just not acknowledged, or it, as Chessa said, as it being normalized to you, those effects continue extremely. They continue right throughout your life. They don't stop after the abuse has stopped. It continues. And we all, and this is what I would love to educate the ex-Jehovah's Witness community about, we struggle with these things every single day of my life, each of your lives. I'm not alone. Each of us have this. And while we're looking at the video of consent, I want you all to think about the effects of the Royal Commission, okay? The Royal Commission has been the biggest thing across Australia, across the world, that has damaged the Watchtower. You know what it was about? It was about two. It was only 2 victims. It is just 2 of us that came forward and told our story. That was it. You know why it's so powerful? It is powerful because it is offensive and it is repugnant to wider society that people would cover up instances of child sexual abuse. That's why it's powerful. And it's because it's a crime. It is a crime. And it should not be tolerated, and people should not be staying silent. The Royal Commission, and I'll explain before we start this video how the Royal Commission was developed. There are significant people in Australia that have had and long advocated for child sexual abuse in religious institutions, not the Jehovah's Witnesses. We're a very tiny, tiny institution. Chrissy Foster led the way with the advocacy of child abuse in religious institutions. Her daughters were assaulted in the Catholic institution by priests. She's the one that led the way. All of the people, the Clan Network, the Blue Knot Association, so not Jehovah's Witnesses, other people have led the way, and they've approached the government, and the government has heard the outcry of this, and they have decided, and that was when Julia Gillard was in government, and she instituted the Royal Commission. So she gave permission for the government to spend an exorbitant amount of money on investigating what happened in religious institutions. Now, the Royal Commission is a credible legal institution, one of the highest credible institutions in Australia. They have phenomenal powers to subpoena records and bring all of this information in and to put it out there for the public. If you were in a court case, if one person just went to the police and reported and went to court, you would have to have a very good reason, and you'd have to approach the court for a subpoena to get information. So one of the benefits of the Royal Commission is that their wide investigative powers. They can subpoena anyone to come to the Royal Commission and answer. They can subpoena any record. And that's exactly what they did. They subpoenaed all of the elders' handbooks, the secret documents, their letters, and they put them all in the exhibit list. That's how come the Royal Commission is amazing. So when the Royal Commission set their terms of reference, I know a lot of people are claiming that they set the terms of reference, but they did not. It was Julia Gillard who set the terms of reference and their round table. Yes, other people had an input, and yes, other people can write a letter, but unless you're specifically mentioned in any of their documents, you have not contributed to setting the terms of reference for a Royal Commission. People can claim all they want, and I know there's a lot of people that have claimed that, but these are the facts. So the Royal Commission then started commencing, and they looked into a wide range of institutions, and they wanted to know, the key issue was how they responded to allegations of child sexual abuse. Now, in Australia, we have mandatory reporting laws. They're not crimes. They're just mandatory reporting laws. They get demerit points, or they pay a fine because they haven't reported. What you want to look at in each country and each state is the criminal legislation, because those are crimes. part of my strategy with this whole entire process was to look at criminal legislation and have a look at that, because what happens is, and as we've seen in the Candace Conti case, all of the other civil cases in America, a civil case is a case that a person will bring to the court because they've been harmed in some way. So it might be like a negligence or malice case. Now, what happens in those instances is you have to pay for your lawyer and they will take a cut. So you're suing the Jehovah's Witness organization because they've wronged you in some way. You pay for it. But what happens is, as a follow-on effect of that, is that when you're in court, the Jehovah's Witnesses, they will throw all of their money at that case. And so then it's an issue between, who's got the most money? Is it Jehovah's Witnesses or is it the lawyer? And quite often, because it's a novel case, the lawyers are really not prepared to do it. Jehovah's Witnesses generally win out on those cases. So part of the strategy, and I started studying law well and truly before I gave evidence at the Royal Commission, was to advocate for child sexual abuse. I did 3 criminal trials. I saw it firsthand myself. And while they were really, really good, I think they lacked a knowledge of how the religious beliefs worked in those instances. And I'll talk about that a bit later. So what a lot of people don't know is that when I decided to give evidence for the Royal Commission, I had already started studying law, and I had been accepted phenomenally. I don't even know how I did this. I only received a year 10 education at school. So I think it's called like sophomore, is it, in America? Is it called sophomore, Spencer? I don't know.
Yes, which is sophomore year, and you mean in high school?
So sophomore year in America. So I really have not had like a higher education. It's a very basic education. Anyway, I saved up money for my son to go to university, my eldest son, and he really mucked around at university. And I said to him, I was a bit upset at him. I was giving him one of those JW lectures. And I said to him, like, hey, what are you doing? I saved $2 a week for you for the last so many years so you could attend university. Like, how could you mess this up? He said to me, well, Mum, it's really my life. It's my life. And he says that it's my choice on what I want to do. And I go, yeah, I understand it's your choice, but I'm trying to help you achieve the things that I've never had. I've never had the luxury. And I can say this for a lot of victims and a lot of people who've left the Jehovah's Witnesses, we've given up our education. We've given up our choices for a career. We've lost everything in that. Our whole lives now, we are in a life of poverty and we're in a life of uneducated type people, which is very easy to indoctrinate, by the way, which is one of the reasons why they do that, in my opinion. Anyway, getting back to the story. My son said to me, well, Mum, if you really, he's deflecting because he really doesn't want to have to answer for his own issues of why he partied at university instead of going to class. Anyway, he said to me, Mum, if you want to go to university, why don't you go? You've got the money, go to university. I said, well, you know what? Maybe I will. Maybe I'll show you how it's done, Bo, because, opportunities don't come by all the time. And anyway, I decided from that point forward to apply for university. I didn't know how it was going to go. I had a hairdressing business at the time, my own business, and I decided to tell some of my clients, hey, look, I was thinking about going to university. And unfortunately, those people said to me, well, Shelly, you can't go to university. And I said, well, why not? And they said, I had a lot of high class clientele. So they were used to having their children in private schools and all of this. I said, why not? And you can't just go because you want to go. I said, you know what? Watch me then. Watch me. So I applied for it, and I thought to myself, if I get into university, I'm going to do it. I don't want to do a bridging course. If I have to do a bridging course, I'm not going to do that. I just want to get in just from me. Do you know what? They accepted me. Could not believe it. Floored me. So I didn't apply for law straight away because I didn't think I was smart enough for law. I love the law. Always wanted to be a lawyer. Always wanted to argue. Always loved and admired the women who were strong enough to argue in court. And I wanted to do that, but I didn't think I was smart enough. You know, not a lot of self-esteem. So what happened was I decided to go for psychology first. I had hairdressing. I talked to women for the last 20 years. You know, I mean, now it's been 20 years, day in, day out. I'm in their close personal contact. You hear everything. You pick up so much information, nonverbal communication. I know women. I can talk to them. I figured that I could talk psychology. You know, I understand. I could pick up whether or not people have been abused or they've been through some difficult process just by speaking to them within 5 minutes, which is phenomenal. And saying that, each of us, any victim of child sexual abuse, domestic violence, any type of abuse, I don't want you to think that it's just me. No. Each of you have this resilience. If you have made it this far, if you have survived the abuse and you haven't committed suicide or you're not being successful, you are as strong as me. You have the voice. You've got it all inside of you, and you just have to tap into it. You just have to tap into it. You have been fighting, Chessa, since you were 5. You've been fighting this since you were 5. You have the resilience. You have the power in you. You fought the disbelief in your own mind and the indoctrination of the religion. You fought this. You fought your parents. You're going, no, this is true. This is Jennifer. You fought the dreams. You're going, no, this is actually true. You know that it's true. You're strong. You have resilience. And that is something which you may not realize, but everybody else in the world, when I went to university, everybody else doesn't have this resilience. I believe that we are way more intelligent than the normal person. We pick up on non-verbal signs of communication well and truly before anybody else does. I don't know if each of you can understand what I'm talking about, but we are assessing people left, right, and center. We're looking at whether or not they speak to us and they look us in the eyes. We're looking at their gestures, their hand movements, how they touch us, what they do. We're assessing people 24/7. Our brain never shuts down because we have always had to protect ourselves. We can't rely on parents. We can't rely on police. We can't rely on elders. We can't rely on adults. We've learned to protect ourselves. And on one of those side effects, and we might sometimes view it as a bad thing. I don't want you to view it as a bad thing anymore. I want you to view it as a positive thing. We have more intelligence than the average person, and you have got way more resilience than anybody else. So you know what? When it came to university, I just had to, you know, all that studying at the religion, sitting down, taking notes. Oh my goodness, it was amazing. Oh, all that came in handy. I could sit through a 2-hour lecture and I could take notes and I knew how to do it. And guess what? I got invited to the International Honor Students Association because my grades were so high that I ended up in the top 6% of international students. So you know what? All of you, I want you to try and educate yourselves, be social workers, be psychologists, be lawyers, you know, all these other people in the industry. And if any of you have gone to social workers and psychologists, you will know that these people have learned this generally from a book. Yes, the suicidal thoughts. Who is that? Born in Pixie. Yes.
That's Jennifer. I'm sorry.
Is that okay? And I know about that. I struggle with that every single day. It's difficult to do, but I try and hang on to something that keeps me grounded and it keeps me here. And I will say that my children, I got married at 18. You know that the abuse occurred at 17. I got married at 18. From 18, I think I was 20 something when I had my first son, and that was Bo Daniel. And he kept me here. He kept me here. He kept me grounded. He kept me responsible. So sometimes responsibilities are actually a really good thing because they keep you. All I wanted to be was the best mother. I just wanted to be better than my mother. I wanted to teach him, protect him, and look after him better than my mother did. That's all. That was all I wanted to do. And I'm sure you can all relate to that. Anyway, going back to education. I really respect lawyers for what they do in court, particularly police prosecutors and DPP. Those people, they fight this stuff day in, day out. But, you know, if somebody had just had, how can I say, this much knowledge of the religion, this could have been dealt with like 20 years ago. Instead, it was not. The court ignored the Jehovah's Witnesses religion when I went to court. They actually had a voir dire which excluded all of the religious processes in court. So the lawyers, the judge, boom, first trial, actually before the first trial. So the Royal Commission got this wrong. It wasn't the Royal Commission, it was the Jehovah's Witnesses response. They got it wrong. They actually, those elders never participated in the trials. They, most of them were captured beforehand in something called a voir dire, which is a legal argument, and the judge ruled everything out. So I could not mention so many years on that I had already reported this so many years ago. So all of a sudden, the jury think that I am speaking about, well, I've all of a sudden remembered something that's just occurred so many years ago. Okay, so that's what the jury was led to believe in my criminal cases, and I'll talk about that again at another point. But anyway, just wanted to explain how the Royal Commission happened, what their powers are, and what the Royal Commission first of all started to do was make recommendations. So they, after they've gathered all of the evidence and they picked people to give evidence, they make recommendations. Now, the recommendations are not something that is set in stone, and a lot of people go, well, what's the government doing? And that's exactly a very good point, because the government is not, while the Royal Commission can make recommendations, it's a government in power at that point in time that need to accept those recommendations and put them into legislation. If they don't do that, well, then nothing happens, nothing changes. So that's where we come to now. And I know I went off on a great big tangent, and it's one of my issues I do.
No, you're doing good, girl. We back here. Just want to let you know we're back in the background.
Thank you to everybody, and I just wanted to let everybody know, you know, any victims out there. And the reason why I say victim is because I've not survived this. I haven't survived. I'm still surviving it. I still consider, so if I've not survived it, I think the word personally for me, and I don't want to offend anybody, but the word survivor does not describe what we've been through, and I think it underestimates the child abuse and the effects of child abuse. It doesn't describe it enough. So that's why I still use the term victim. So I hope it doesn't offend people, because I'm still struggling with it. Some 20-something years later, and each of you today have said the same thing. So no offense to anyone if I use the term victim. That's why I use it.
You You are so strong. Thank you so much for the advice that you've given us. I guess, Shelly, do you want to play the consent video for our audience, or do you just want to let them to see it later? That's up to you.
So I suppose before I do that,
okay.
Before I do that, I just want to say, since we're on the topic of court cases and everything like that, so I've been through court cases myself, 3 of them. One thing that I really want to express, and I tried to educate Lloyd Evans on this. I actually humbled myself to go talk to him, swallowed my pride to try and get this message out to the community. Like, there's positive effects of the Royal Commission. There's also some negatives. So I get that everybody wants to share their story, and I get that, and I did, say in my statement, I want victims to come forward and report their stories. Unfortunately, what's happening is, in the communities, some people, ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, are exploiting victim stories. They're taking them without consent, and they're using them to puff themselves up and make them bigger than what they are. Because let's face it, I don't know about each of you, but if you see somebody with all these stories about child sexual abuse survivors. Now, hang on, before I say this, some people go to great lengths to obtain consent. I know Silent Lambs does that. They obtain consent of their victims prior to publishing their stories, and those stories have been published with the explicit consent of those people. Now, I know that's what attracted me to Emma. On her Twitter feed, she put some stories out there, and she's got permission. She's de-identified them completely. The people are happy with them, and she reproduces them to make awareness. Now, I'm not saying don't say anything, but if you're going to say it, please don't put any identifying information in these stories, because what happens is, when you do get to court, you think about it, historical case of sexual abuse. Do you have any other forms of evidence? And what I mean by evidence, I'm talking about documented evidence, like notes from the Judicial Committee. Do you have them? Do you have any DNA evidence? Did you go to the hospital? Did you get a rape kit done? I'm talking about hardcore evidence. So either documented, eyewitnesses, which is what the Jehovah's Witnesses talk about. Do you have something? Did you have a diary where you wrote everything down? Did you take a photograph of your underwear afterwards? I'm talking hardcore evidence. If you don't have hardcore evidence, what happens is, when you do get to court, it becomes he said, she said, which is what the Jehovah's Witnesses talk about. So when you're in a court of law, you have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that sexual assault occurred. You need 12 jury, I think it's the same in America, you need 12 jury members to believe you beyond a reasonable doubt that person's guilty. So the key thing that is on the table here is your credibility. It's your credibility. Have you lied? Are you doing this for money? Have you been inconsistent in your stories? Because I had those questions asked of me over and over, and they capitalized on them. So if you have 2 or 3 versions, or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8, 10 versions of your story out there, what happens is your credibility. If I was a defense lawyer, I would find those stories and I'd use them against you in a court of law, because my goal is to destroy your credibility. If you report or put your story out there and you say explicit details to identify explicit details that are going to be used in court, you know what? You're damaging your case. Now, I went to Lloyd in Sydney after all the other issues that we had with covert fade, whatever, and I tried to educate him on how important it is not to share explicit details. I asked him to, obtain consent, and in the process of obtaining consent, that he educate those people who are sharing the stories. If you are going to share the story, and if you want to use it, please educate that person and go, you know what? Be very careful that you don't share explicit details, because it might be used against you. Should you at any point in the future decide a civil claim or a criminal claim, it could be used against you. I'm not saying it will, I'm saying it could, because they did that in my case. Okay, so I'm just trying to protect you all. You do not need, and I tried to explain to Lloyd that the most important thing to victims is justice and the right to be heard. Would you all agree?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So if you can finally, if you survive to now, you want justice. You want your time to take a swipe at the Watchtower for causing so much damage, and your perpetrator for causing so much damage to your life. Am I right?
Absolutely.
Okay. So this is important to victims, and this is what I'm trying to educate the community about. But unfortunately, I just get shut down all the time. I get attacked by all the followers. I mean, in Australia, I don't trust any of those people in Australia. Any ex-JWs in Australia are really, there's a couple singular people, but not the groups, not anyone. So that's why I'm speaking to America, because I'm trying to educate victims and activists on what's important at the end of the day. And it's to look after you, because I've been through it. I know.
Shelly, since we're talking about victim stories and you giving advice on what to share and what not to share and how to share, is there anything you think personally you probably would have done differently had you had it over, or you wish the Royal Commission would have done differently?
Okay. So yeah, while there's positive effects of the Royal Commission, which we'll probably talk about, we might end on that note, which would be good. But the negative effects of the Royal Commission, so I don't know if anybody's seen my Twitter rants, because I get so frustrated.
That's how I found you, honey, because I was scrolling through my feed and I said, Emma, do you see this? And everybody else kind of connected and knew who you were. And I'm thinking, like, what is going on here?
Is she like crazy? Has she like lost the plot? Okay.
No, I didn't think that at all. I was trying to find the person you was talking about. I'm like, I'm ready.
I'm ready. Really use anybody's name.
We didn't think you were crazy. We were just basically like, who's giving this girl shit? We need to find out what's going on here.
Oh my God, if you knew the shit that I had dealt with, you'd be blown away. You'd be absolutely blown. I'm just having a drink on.
Like when we saw that, and I remember one of us sent it in our group chat, and we were like, who is she talking about, and where can we find him?
Have you seen this? We were like, what? Right, we're on it.
Like,
right.
Thank you so much.
And you know what, Emma was right on it, because right after I sent the Twitter, and then I'm atting the person that you're talking about, like telling you to mind your mother, you know what business, and I just keep this a family show.
This is my daughter.
Oh my God.
Hello.
She's seen for this.
Again, I got scared because I thought someone is coming from behind me.
This is my youngest daughter. So I have 4 children. She's my youngest. Her name's Billy Rose.
Nice to meet you.
Y'all are stunningly beautiful. You got some model blood.
You both are. You all are.
You got some good DNA going on there.
I have actually, that's something else I forgot to tell you. I do have 4 children. So I have 3 sons, and Billy Rose is my last daughter. I had 3 sons to my first. Jehovah's Witness partner or husband, you could say. Gosh, that sounds bad. Okay, so then I left the religion, and a couple of years later met her father, and so she's the product of that relationship.
Can I just say as well, you don't look old enough to have children that age.
No, not at all. Y'all looks like sisters.
Thank you. Yeah. She's giving me chocolate. My eldest son is actually 29.
What?
Yeah.
Fuck off.
Yeah. So 29, and then I have, is he 29 this next birthday? 29 this next birthday, and then I have Brandon, who's 26. So Bo Daniel is my eldest. 28, 29.
No way.
Brandon is 26, and then Bailey, is he 24, Billy? I don't know, I think he's 24. And then
so
Billy,
you don't have babies.
She's 14.
No way.
I'm 15, so.
You need to tell us your secret sometime.
Yes, right?
Please. You know what? I was actually Jehovah's Witness, and I never drank or smoked. I was really... I didn't party, and I think actually Molly, my father, as much as I don't really like him. He's Hungarian, so I think I picked up the European skin. So that's a good thing, right? Something positive from that. But yeah, a lot of sunscreen, exfoliate, water.
Yeah.
And I'll give all those tips later, but on another time. Or you're asking me, oh yes, what was I that fish Dory in Finding Nemo?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Relate to this. That's my gosh, it's like my second name. So you too, Chester. Oh my God. Okay, so something that happens with, well, I don't know, it definitely happens with me. So keep me on track, Spencer, because
No, you're fine. I was asking if you would have done anything differently, or is there anything you wish the Royal Commission would have done differently?
Okay. So yeah, going back to my rant on Twitter, and that long thread that everybody's seen. Okay, it's maybe, oh gosh, it's a bit of a long story. Can I maybe start from the beginning?
Sure, go right ahead.
Okay. So, as you all know, I did the criminal trials. I did the 3 criminal trials. Took approximately around about 6 years from the point that I started that to the point that I finished that. So when I first started, and please don't be alarmed about this because generally it shouldn't take that long. It's just that my case was really difficult because of the elders and their behaviour and the changes in legal representation with the DPP. Anyway, that's all going to be in the book. I started writing a book, and you can all read the book when I finish it. And it's got a lot more detail in it than what I'm telling you today. And there is a lot more detail. But so we're at round about, say, 2013, 20 something. I've already started studying university. I finished the criminal trials. I've got my 4 children. I'm starting to get my life on track. So I started studying at university. I started studying psychology. I did really well. I got invited into the International Honor Student Society, top 6%. I was acing it. I met a university professor, Dr. Mark David Chong, and he said to me, Shelley, you should be studying law. I was like, thanks very much. I'm not that smart. I kind of ignored him a couple of times. Anyway, the 3rd time I decided to give, what he was saying a go. So I didn't want to, one thing I don't want to do is live with regrets. So I decided to try law for at least 6 months. So I moved into the law cohort at university, and I loved it. Oh my goodness. This was my language. I loved it so much more than psychology. It was where I wanted to be, and I got accepted into that easy as. So as I started studying law, that was 2012, 2013, 2014, I got such high grades that I got accepted into the honour students stream of law at James Cook University in Townsville. And so as part of that, what an honours thesis is that you have to, instead of doing more subjects, they have this honours stream where you can write an honours thesis. An honours thesis is basically a big assignment up to 20,000 words. Mine should have been 10,000. It went to 20,000. But anyway, what it is that you find new ways of arguing criminal law, or not criminal, any law. It can be any law. So you just have to find new ways of arguing it, looking at it from a different perspective. So while those criminal laws have always been there, you just have to look at it from a different perspective. It has to be a new way of arguing it. Anyway, I decided to write my honours thesis on the Royal Commission. I thought, you know what, this is child sexual abuse. I so want to do this. This is going to be great. So I started drafting my honours thesis. Oh, actually, prior to that, I spoke to one of my friends that I knew who was an ex-Jehovah's Witness, and she said to me, Shelley, and I didn't actually hang around them. She was only a new connection. So I actually cut all ex-Jehovah's Witnesses and Jehovah's Witnesses away. I didn't want to know any of them because of how harmful they were to me. So she said to me, Shelly, are you going to give evidence at the Royal Commission? I said to her, well, I've already done that in criminal court. I've got my life on track here. You know, I had a few, well, actually a lot. One thing I will say, and I'm not sure that each of you can relate to this, but in my life, there has been the abuse occurred back here, but the snowball effects, it's like an avalanche, and the snowball effects just keep going and going and going. I might look okay, but I've had lots and lots and lots of other ongoing effects. It's of the abuse. It's like whack-a-mole. As soon as I deal with one issue, there's another issue and another issue and another issue. And I'm always seeming to just be in panic mode dealing with these continual issues. So anyway, I'm not sure if you can agree with that, or if you can relate to it, or if it's just me, but I think you might relate to it. But anyway, I said to my friend, you know what, I don't have the capacity to deal with this. I've got plenty of other stuff going on with university. I was working for myself, supporting my children, because Billy's father would not support my children. So financially, that's an issue. So I was working to support me and my children. I was studying full-time at university. I had health issues, kid issues, you know, lots of issues going on. And I said, sorry, can't do that. I'm going to look after myself. And the issues were that bad at the time, those snowball effects, that I sought the assistance of the psychologist at university to help me get through university. So I had been seeing this guy, and his name's Keith Rowden, great guy. Anyway, he was really good to speak with and give me strategies on how to get through university while managing all the other issues. Anyway, the Royal Commission advertisements kept coming up over and over. And I don't know if most victims out there have a conscience, and you know what I'm talking about when I say this. So I said to myself, well, gosh, no, I can't deal with that. I've got plenty on my plate. I'm not dealing with it. Do you have a story to tell? It just kept coming up, radio, here, there, everywhere. And if the universe was ever telling me that I needed to contact the Royal Commission, they were saying it right now. So I'm like, oh, okay, fine. You know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to quickly ring them. And I'm going to say, you know what? This is what happened to me. And, you know, and I was very familiar with the Royal Commission. I was very familiar with their terms of reference in religious institutions. And I thought to myself, well, you know what? I don't think I fit in. That were my first sentences. I don't think I fit within your terms of reference. But here's my story. Do you want to hear it? And they said, yeah, sure. I told them my story very briefly. Boom, 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 boom. That's it. From that, the Royal Commission contacted me back. They said to me, hey, we would like you to come and talk to a commissioner. So I never, ever, ever applied to do a private session as quoted in the Royal Commission books. I didn't apply for it. They asked me. So they said to me, would you be prepared to travel to Brisbane? Because I lived in Townsville at the time. Would you be prepared to travel to Brisbane and, you know, share your story with the commissioners? We would like you to do that. We'll pay for your flight. That's what they did. They paid for my flight. So I said, sure. Okay, fine. I'll come help. So they flew me down on the 20th of February, 2014. They flew me down, and I spoke with a commissioner and another male, younger male, in a room just by yourself. Yes, very, very, very similar to the Jehovah's Witnesses elders process, which is traumatic enough. So you could imagine how I'm flipping out about it. And they started by saying things that they were recording the session. It was totally confidential. And these are the screenshots. So I will get into why I shared the screenshots later, but the screenshots that I shared in my Twitter feed they said a few things. And so those screenshots that I've provided in my Twitter feed are the exact words that were said in my private session. So I shared.
I can a few of them on the screen here.
Okay, so I shared 2 types of information with the Royal Commission. I had the first one, which was in 2014, which was my private session, and then I shared, later on they asked me to give public evidence, so that was the second form of information. So let's get back to the private session, because I want to clear up a lot of issues that are going around in the ex-Jehovah's Witness community and a lot of the attacks that I've been receiving from ex-Jehovah's Witnesses as regards to the private sessions. So the first one said, what did it say again, Spencer? Can you put that back up?
Sorry, I'm trying to. Right. I felt like Willy Wonka back here, just pulling levers and stuff. Hang on one second. Here we go. Is it this one?
Yeah. So they say they're very important. They are very important, not only because we are interested in your particular story, your experiences, but also that we can gather an understanding of what happened in a number of institutions, including a number of religious organizations, and the Jehovah's Witnesses are a part of that. Okay. So do you have the next one?
They're not in a real order. So I'm gonna flash.
Yeah, this one. Okay. So on the side of the actual screenshot, you can see 10, 11, 12. So this is the second one. And I've deleted. Now, I want everybody to know that I absolutely, I love the Royal Commission, and I love the work that they've done. I love the commissioners themselves. I have great respect for the commissioners. And what I'm speaking about right now are the government processes about protecting victims' rights of consent. And I'm talking about those people behind the scenes and the government who have set up these processes to protect these stories. So before I go on anymore, the private sessions of the Royal Commission in Australia, they allowed a lot of people from various institutions, not just religious, Boy Scouts, all of these other institutions, to come and ask to have a private session with a commissioner. They recorded their stories by microphone, and they also then do a transcript. And this is the transcript of that story. So there were 8,000 victims like you, Chessa, that you've and like you, Spencer, that haven't spoken about this for like 20, 30 years. What did you say, Chessa? How many years does it take somebody to come forward?
Usually, statistically, it takes someone until about the age of 55, I believe.
Okay. Yeah. So this information,
or today, because I'm 39 years old.
Yeah.
So it takes.
Spencer, I just want to say I applaud you for that. It must have taken all the guts and courage, and all those motherfuckers who try to discredit any of you and any other one of you out there, using your mental health issues, using your past as an abuse survivor against you.
Yeah,
they can get
heard from Molly.
Thanks,
Molly. All right, Shelly.
Thank you. So we're doing this private session. So that second one that you put up, that screenshot, and this is what. So basically, one of the biggest issues is this is a negative effect of the Royal Commission. So the Commissioner says, so we're interested in that the sessions are being recorded, hence this little microphone that is flashing on the table, flashing at you. The reason for that is we want to look at the particular institution or a particular set of circumstances. We can come back and have a look at that record, have a look for that record. But this is clear. The conversation is totally what? Confidential.
Confidential, that's what it says.
We would only use part of that in a way that could identify if we seek your explicit consent at the appropriate time. Okay, these are the clear words. Now, I don't have to, nobody else can share my private session because a lot of people were attacking me in the ex-Jehovah's Witness community about the fact that I forgot whether or not I gave consent or whether or not I lied and said that I gave consent or didn't give consent, sorry. Because what has happened is the Royal Commission has published, so basically, private
Private session, where am I? Private session here. Public evidence here in 2015. 2014, 20th of February 2014. Royal Commission, what is it, July 27th, 2015. My private session has been published without my consent. This is the issue. I'm not talking about my public evidence. I'm talking about this document that has explicit details and more details in there that I did not want to share in the 2015 evidence. It should have been protected. It's actually protected by legislation. I have been fighting this since early 2019, and I will get to that, how I started to do that. But my story has been published. My private session has been published under the name Martyr. It's been relabeled and it has been put into a narrative called Martyr. I did not give consent for it to be published. So all those ex-Jehovah's Witness activists out there, I did not give consent. In this session, it said, we will seek your explicit consent at the appropriate time. That means not now in the private session. It means at a point in the future. Would you all agree? It means at the appropriate time. It's not right now. Unfortunately, what the Royal Commission has done is they have published in their publications that consent was obtained during the session, and it's not true. It's not true in my case. So I wonder, out of the 4,000 private sessions that have been converted into narratives, how many of those actually where the consent allegedly was obtained in exactly the same way? How many? To me, I mean, when I found out that it was actually the Royal Commission that published my private session in this Martyr document, my God, what an ultimate betrayal of trust for me. It is ultimate betrayal of trust. It's worse than my parents. It is worse than my mother. It's worse than my sisters. It's worse than the religion. It's worse than anything I have ever experienced in my entire life. Their trust betrayal is the worst. So keep going. We'll keep going about the transcript, and we'll talk about a little bit about what they said they would share and what they said they would not. We're looking at the next one.
Can I just add in, Shelly? Can I just add in that you said that it's not the case 29 PDF that's published? Can I just say, like, it's not that. Just say that
very, very clear. And I think I confused a lot of people. That's why I wanted to come on and talk about it. So the private session is a document called Martyr, M-A-R-T-A. So if you see a story somewhere published as Martyr, I have not given consent for that to be published. And I will talk about more of it later on, but
and it's separate to what we've put on here today.
You've got case study 29, the live hearings, my statement under BCG. That is what I said I would share. I did say, yes, you can share that. I've agreed to share that. That's not what I'm talking about. The blue book in the findings and the reports, that is what I said I would share, because I actually fixed up the statement, and I'll talk about that in a minute. I'll tell you about that. But let's go back to the transcript and see what else they said they would and would not do. So compare this with what their publications, the Royal Commission publications, say. So does anyone want to read it? Chessa, do you want to read it?
Sure. Am I reading this one that's in front of me right now?
Yeah.
Okay. Commissioner blank. What we are doing, however, is we are turning some of the stories that we have heard into stories that we can tell to the public, but not in a way that identifies the individual or the actual institution, that is the location or the perpetrators. We are asking people whether they have any problems with their story being converted into a totally non-identified story.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So there are 4 things in this. There are 4 different issues. Number 1, they're not going to identify the individual. They're not going to identify the actual institution. They're not going to identify the location or the perpetrator. Okay, so if anybody can find Marta's story anywhere online, have a look at it. If you have a look at the Marta story, it is substantially similar to my public session because it's been taken from my private session. If you have a look at it, you will see that the Jehovah's Witnesses institution has been identified. You will see that it was my father, a ministerial servant, that has been identified. You will see that it's been identified as being occurring in Queensland. And so your 4 things here that they said that they would not identify, they've identified.
That is so wrong.
Okay, so let's move on to the next one. This is the cruncher.
Do you want me to read this one too?
Yeah. Go.
All right, Commissioner, but that will only happen with a few stories. You can say no to that.
Okay. So, do you know how many stories were private sessions were conducted by the Royal Commission? 8,000 in Australia. 8,000. Do you know how many they converted into narratives? It says a few.
How many?
Nearly 4,000. Half of that. So this is part of the issue, why I've come on today, because I'm pretty sure that's the last one. So at the end of the Royal, that private session, the Commissioner asked me, this is when the recording was turned off, and he said to me, Shelley, would you be prepared to give public evidence? And I said to him, well, I'm concerned, you know, because I'm doing a law degree. I've really struggled to get it done. I want to protect my right to practice law. And personally, for me to practice law, I don't want explicit details out there. I don't want the explicit details of my rapes and assaults out there. I don't want it. Attempted rapes, rather. I don't want it out there. I want to be able to feel confident enough psychologically to stand in court and act as a prosecutor or a DPP prosecutor to protect and fight for victims. If you publish my story, you know, this is me psychologically speaking, you publish my information without me agreeing to that and explicit details of my sexual assaults, and everybody else in the courtroom, the defense lawyers, know about that, I feel like I'm standing there naked. I can't psychologically cope with that. I don't want to be in the public eye, and I don't want to then advocate for other victims because you've raped me and assaulted me all over again because I said no. I said no to it. Okay, so one of the other things is I didn't know that this was going to happen at that point in time. When I went to give my private session, I said, yes, I'd be happy to be contacted. I did not give my explicit consent to share my story or to convert it into a narrative. I assumed that they were going to contact me at the appropriate time for my explicit consent. Now, studying law, we learn about what explicit consent is. So if any of you want to ever share your medical records with somebody else, do you have to sign a form for that? If you go from one doctor to another?
Oh, absolutely. It's called HIPAA here in America. You can't. You have to give consent. You can't just
say,
obtain.
Hey, I'm Shelly. Yeah.
No, absolutely not. Although the HIPAA law is a very new law because of people being sued for those reasons, giving out details. Now that law exists, where physicians are held to a standard, I'm just saying medically, to not release personal information. Now, you can't just call doctor's office and say, hey, can I get Shelly's XYZ? No, it just absolutely couldn't happen here without consequences.
Yeah, and it's
go ahead, Shelly.
It's even more strict in Europe with the GDPR, so much so that I could actually, like, if we had a Facebook conversation or a text message exchanges over the phone, whatever, I could not even quote your message legally without your consent.
That's freaking awesome, Molly, because that's
like if you send me a message and then I come on live, I can say, yeah, I spoke to Shelly about the ARC, and that's all I could say. I could not quote you verbatim. Like, I could not say Shelly said the ARC did this and this and this. I could not say it legally. I could go to jail for a year for that.
Okay. What about UK, Emma? What's it like in the UK? What do you do over there? Do you have...
I'm not really sure, like, because a lot of stuff that I publish, I just put like copyright criticism and, you know, so I kind of like back myself up that way. So I've never been in the situation where...
If you're sharing like your medical records, have you ever been from one doctor to another?
I've never really looked into that. I've never had a reason to. The only...
That'll be interesting to find out after the show.
What about Chessa? What about you? In your what state are you in?
I'm currently in Kentucky, but I've lived a lot of places in the United States.
Sorry?
I'm currently living in Kentucky, but I've lived in several different states. So,
and do they do that? Like, if you're wanting to share explicit details, so say you want to, share anything about you publicly, sometimes even privacy laws, even with like phone companies, you have to share. You have to sign certain things. So, do you know what I'm talking about with that? Like,
absolutely, yeah. Well, the issue is everything is so archaic. And we move at such a slow rate with implementing policies to protect people's personal identification, protect their safety. Everybody always talks about a reward in this. What is in this for you? And this is not a winning situation. This is not where you win anything. There's no prize. There's no Willy Wonka ticket. Like, this is not an ideal situation for any of us, right? So when the most important thing in this is consent, like you said, and there are not enough privacy legislations implemented for people who are coming forward about things that could endanger their lives, their careers, their families, everything.
Can I say something really quick?
Yeah.
We're talking about the legality of things, but can I also talk about people's morality? Just because you have the right, or you think you have the right to do something, don't mean you should do it.
Well, and
just because you can't do something doesn't mean that you should.
In this country, I mean, it's awful. And sorry, just one more thing.
You're good.
With Epstein and Weinstein and all these cases that we're seeing, we're uncovering very large, organized sex trafficking trade issues right now. Okay, never really been addressed. Been around since the Romans and the Greeks. Like, sex trafficking has been a form of international trade since humans began documenting history, literally. Like, Sumerians, sex trafficking. You've never known humanity without knowing that there was some form of sexual commerce happening. For the first time in human history, we're able to collectively get together cerebrally as a unit and understand that these things are happening. The problem is our legislation is so slow. Yeah, and they are not interested in implementing better policy, because if they do, they're going to show that the entire time that legislation is being passed in any country on this earth, we have been disregarding completely people who have been abused in such a way. B, that multiple organizations of religion, governments, and other cells of humanity have been forcibly abusing people this way and have put in policies to protect them and their organizations instead of protect victims. So as we begin to collectively discuss this as a society and have some sort of narrative, we need to do it responsibly. And we need to understand that we need to change. You need to change, and you need to change now, because otherwise nothing's going to get done.
And we need to stand up more. Sorry, Chessa. Like, I've been saying, like, 2020 is the year where we need to fucking fight back, let's say.
Yeah.
We need to protest against this shit. We need to say this is not fucking right. We need to stand up against this shit. And I think 2020, even though it's been a majorly, like, messed up year, to me it feels like a year where people are starting to fight back. And we need to continue that momentum and keep it going. That we're not taking it for Black Lives Matter. We're not taking it for child sex abuse. We're not taking it for paedophiles. We need to keep this momentum going where we are not taking this.
Where the silence are able to speak. In the silence, they're given a voice. And, with social media and, the platforms across the internet, across all jurisdictions, we now can join together and we can make a bigger voice. That's what my purpose is.
And even in our existing community, if I can just keep it all the way real, since Shelly, you brought it up.
I know.
since you brought it up, even in our ex-Jehovah's Witness community, how dare some of us? Some of us need to be ashamed for trolling a sex abuse victim. I don't care what you think you right about. You couldn't possibly be right against another sex abuse victim. You need to back off. You need to find something else to do. If you think that on one hand that you can bring awareness, but then step on the person that you're trying to bring awareness to, can somebody tell me how does that work? Oh, I'm helping Shelly. I want to help her bring awareness, but also, Shelly, be quiet and shut up and don't talk about your story. What is that?
Yeah, exactly. I find that really ironically hypocritical of a lot of people who use case study 29, and I've said this online, is that they use it like their own personal limits when they use it. They capitalize on it. They have talking points about it. But then when they feel like it, I don't speak up at all, I'm attacked. Because I don't have the right to say anything. Hey, so you shut the F up. Because you know what? We're going to take this 29. We're going to put it on our webpage. We're going to make all this money from it. We're going to capitalize on it. But you know what? We believe you for case study 29. But when it comes to you saying that you did not give consent for your private session to be published, well, we don't believe you. We're going to attack you and destroy your credibility. We're going to say to you, Shelly, have you got mental issues? Maybe you should go seek some mental help. Do you know what? For those activists that have attacked me in that manner, you know what? That is very, very similar to the Watchtower's policy. You need to all check yourselves of whether or not you're still being indoctrinated and saying whether we're mentally diseased, because that's how you're acting. You need to, get rid of the chains of indoctrination.
Oh, Emma, I think I put you on. Wait a minute. Wait.
Also,
wait. I think Emma going next. I'm sorry, Emma. I thought I heard.
That's what I'm
muting you. Sorry.
That's what I was saying to you, Shelly, the other day. Like, people that use your story to gain clicks. Oh my God, it's just like we call it clout chasing activism. And it's so fucking wrong, because at the end of the day, to use your story, 1 minute go, yes, we agree, and then the next minute say I just don't get it. Like, we are ex-Jehovah's Witnesses who are cast out, shunned. We need to fucking support child sex abuse victims. We need to support domestic violence victims. We need to support every victim, not re-victimize victims and not use them as clout
and exploit them.
That's what it is. It's exploitation. And for the person online who said that Shelly's her story is exhausting, you can also hit mute on Twitter, so you don't ever have to see her.
Said that. Fuck you.
Yeah.
That's one thing I want to make sure I make really clear. You know, when I'm speaking online and I'm talking on Twitter and I'm going off about things, I'm not talking to the activists, and I'm not looking for clicks. I'm not looking for the popularity contest. You know what I'm looking for? I'm looking for the people who are like me. And I'm telling you, all of you victims out there, all you people who are being subject to sexual abuse and not being believed, you're the person I'm fighting for. I'm fighting for you. And and because what has happened, Spencer, Molly, Chessa, you've heard me. You've believed it. And those people who are real about protecting victims and understanding the morality about consent and not consent, and understand that child sexual abuse is wrong, those people are drawn to us, and they're the people I want to speak to, because I got a way bigger plan than just this. So
that's actually a question I wanted to ask you whenever you get a chance to get there. But you had something very interesting to say about the redress scheme to us that people may not know. Is that where you're going? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was going to talk about that. I'm going to tell you exactly how I got to give evidence, because there's a lot of stories out there, people claiming that they wrote the terms of reference, people claiming they were behind the Royal Commission. Let me be really clear. The people who wrote the terms of reference are the government people. And the people who were in the round table, if your name is not specifically mentioned, I think the terms of reference were written in 2013. If your name is not specifically mentioned as being shown, and if you are not put up there by the government by Justice McClellan, I attended a human rights oration day. I saw Sherry D'Souza and Sasha D'Souza there in Sydney earlier at end of last year, I think it was, or early this year. No, can't remember. Might have been last year. Justice McClellan was there, and he talked about the Royal Commission, and I had an opportunity to speak with him. But do you know who he had up there as being the forefront of making the Royal Commission, you know, being behind it? Do you know who he had? It wasn't anyone from the ex-Jehovah's Witness community, I may tell you that. He had Chrissy Foster up there. If you don't know who she is, you need to all Google her, because she's the person who advocated for a inquiry into religious institutions' responses to sexual abuse. It wasn't any ex-Jehovah's Witness. It wasn't them at all. We were like a tiny little drop. It was the people in the Catholic institution. Chrissy Foster, she's my hero. She lost her daughters, one of her daughters' lives because of abuse. She advocated long before Jehovah's Witnesses even came onto the scene of the child sexual abuse. So those people are the ones that are responsible. Okay, so I did my private session, 20th of February 2014. Remember that. I go on about my merry way, think that's it, done my job. I said that they could contact me if they wanted to contact me about the private session, turning it into a narrative. I also said they could contact me to give public evidence, because he said it would not damage my legal, you know, right to practice law. So that's what I said. Come 2015, I can't remember the exact date, and I'm trying to get those records right now, but the Royal Commission contacted me again by phone, and they said to me, hey, Shelley, you know, you mentioned that you would be willing to give public evidence. Would you give public evidence? And I said, well, you know, from that point in 2014 to 2015, I separated from my ex-partner, Billy's father, and my gosh, it was a lot of domestic violence, and we were concerned for our lives, me and my children, because of him. He did a lot of things like preparing a grave for me. My daughter was too scared to attend school. It just kept going on. So just as much as things were bad back then, they got worse.
I'm sorry to hear that, Shelly.
That's okay. It'll all be in my book. So if you want to know a little bit more about it, you read my book.
I'll be the first one in line.
Thank you. So because I had struggled physically from the effects of stress at that point in time, and as I mentioned earlier that I was speaking to a psychologist at university, I trusted him and he was helping me. And I said to him, I said, look, you know, I'm talking to a psychologist. I really need to talk to him before I do anything at all, because he was like my go-to person to help me get out of the situation I was in. So I said I needed to speak with him. I went to speak to my psychologist at university and said what the Royal Commission had asked me to do. And he said, no way, Shelley, no way. You can't do this. You've got too much of a load of stress on you already. I don't even know how you're coping as it is. You need to look after yourself. You need to look after your children. And you need to finish this degree so you can, you know, be independent. And that was my plan, to be independent from the partner I was with. So, you know, I went back home, and the Royal Commission contacted me again by phone, and they said to me, Shelly, so what have you decided? And I said, well, I went to see my psychologist. My psychologist said, no, not to do it. And I'm going to follow what my psychologist said, because I've got a lot on my plate and I'm barely functioning right now. I mean, I had to go to court for domestic violence protection orders against my ex-partner to protect me and my children. I had padlocked my front gate. I had a neighbor that was harassing me. You name it, it was happening. So I really, at that point in my life, my children and myself and my own safety was the highest priority, okay? But when I said that I couldn't do the public evidence, this little conscience that I have inside my head said to me, can't you find somebody else to do it this time? Like, I'm really tired of being that pinata for the Jehovah's Witnesses.
and for the community. You know, I'm tired of being attacked all the time because I was really attacked with the criminal trials, attacked by my family. You know, I just kind of had enough of being attacked. I'm tired of it. Can't you find somebody else to do this? Because it was extremely, extremely important to me that the two-witness rule and those issues were brought out. Well, guess what the Royal Commission said? They said to me, well, while we've got a lot of people that have got evidence, you know, not evidence, while a lot of people have contacted us in relation to a lot of stories that have come in, they don't have enough evidence. They don't have enough physical evidence or, you know, like documented evidence. And they said to me, and I'll be really clear with this, they said to me that unless I decided to give evidence at the Royal Commission, they would not be able to proceed with a case study on the Jehovah's Witnesses.
Wow.
That's a fact. So guess where that left me? That left me in a situation where I was having to choose between what was best for my family and what was best for the rest of the community. I felt responsible. I mean, and although I'm not being abused, and I knew that I'm out of the abuse, sexual abuse, and the community, guess what? I felt responsible for all of those people in there that are still getting abused. And when I lived in North Queensland, there were at least 10 people that I knew, other children, young children, teenagers that were also sexually abused by other people in that area. 10. So it was kind of common knowledge within that congregation and around in that area. So I knew that if I didn't say anything, I should say something, right? I should do this. And so without hesitation, I said, fine, I'll do it. Because I had the criminal trials, I had the judicial notes, I had my letters that I wrote to the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society. I had a lot of information that was useful to the commission. So I said, okay, I'll give evidence then. So going into that, I was not at a really good place emotionally, psychologically. I was, well, you could say I was on the ground. I was splattered on the ground. I was barely keeping my head above water. I had my 4 children to look after because their father really, the 3 boys' biological father did not help me financially or look after them in any way, shape or form. My current daughter, she didn't want to go to school. I had a lot on my plate, and I was at breaking point before I even talked to the Royal Commission, let alone dealing with bringing up all this trauma in my life that I thought I'd packed away after the criminal trials. So I decided to give evidence. Now, when I went down, I was still studying at university. I think in around June, July, I was actually in Sydney with my son. My son decided to study law for a little bit, which is great. But anyway, he came to Sydney with me to the national competitions for law. So in the universities, you would have national competitions for law, and this time it was being held in Sydney at ALSA. It's called Australian Law Students Association. So I was down there in the competition. I wasn't participating in the competitions, but I would assist in the competitions. So I'd get to see students argue in court and see who was good, who was not good, and I loved it. It was awesome. But when I was down there for that event, I attended the Royal Commission offices at Farrier Place in Sydney. I consulted with the staff of the Royal Commission to start drafting my statement for evidence for case study 29. Now, in doing that, they had taken all of my records, mostly from my private session, and they'd put it in a statement to assist me. Joanna Blair and Amanda Dench. I met with these women at the sessions. I was there by myself with my son. There was no other ex-Jehovah's Witness there. I know there are people that have claimed that they've assisted me to give evidence at the Royal Commission. Completely untrue and fabricated. They have never assisted me to give evidence. And let me be clear
on what evidence is at the Royal Commission. So what will happen if you're asked, and if you want to use the terms of evidence at the Royal Commission, if somebody claims that they've given evidence at the Royal Commission, you ask them to see their subpoena. The Royal Commission gave me a subpoena, which meant it's a legal document that said that they wanted me to attend on a certain date at a certain time to give evidence and produce information about the sexual assaults of my sexual assaults. If other people have claimed that they've given evidence at the Royal Commission, ask them for this document, because there's a lot of false and fabricated claims circling in the ex-Jehovah's Witness community, and they're not true. So I'm telling you right now, and if you ever want to see, actually, I will show at some point my subpoena from the Royal Commission. So you know I'm telling you the truth. Now, during these consultations at the Royal Commission in Sydney with Joanna Blair and Amanda Dench and the other people that were there, I can't remember the names, but Joanna Blair was one of the solicitors that was helping Angus Stewart with getting together the evidence. So to assist me, she gathered all of the information in my private session. She gathered some information from the criminal trials, and she put them all in this document. She gave me this document, and basically she wanted me to just check over and sign it. So that document there, when you go to case study 29 and you look at the exhibits and you download an exhibit called BCG's statement, that is the statement that I read out as public evidence. That's a statement that they're referring to in the Blue Book. That's a statement that I chose to put in there. Now, let me assure you, the information that's in that statement and the original statement that the Royal Commission gave me as to assist me, their first draft statement, are completely different. I expressed to both of the staff members and the staff members when I was writing the draft statement, I do not want to share explicit details of my sexual assault. I want to practice as a lawyer. I'm studying law. I don't want to jeopardize that. I don't want explicit details of my sexual assault. While I want to help, I don't want to share everything. I mean, I've got to have some kind of, self-esteem. Please just let me have something for myself. I want to just keep some form of self-respect, please. I was in criminal court for 6 years. I was cross-examined on these explicit details over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. I've done that. And this is what I said to the staff members. I have already been in court. I have it has been proven that my father sexually assaulted me. I've been cross-examined. We've gone over these explicit details. I thought that the Royal Commission was about the responses of the religion, not about whether or not I've been abused. Obviously I've been abused. It's been proven in a court of law. Tell me, is this about the responses of child sexual abuse? Why do I have to go back through all of this extra trauma here? I don't want to do it. Like, I want to put in what I want to put in here. So I deleted all of these explicit details, and I said, I do not want them in this statement. I want to come from a position of power from this statement, and I want to share, and I want to be inspiring to other people. And in saying that, when I decided to give public evidence, I thought that I was going to give public evidence with my face, my name, Shelly Brayo. Now got Dean in front of it. I've been married since then. But that's what I was prepared to do. You know why I wanted to do that? I wanted to do that because I did not want my face blacked out, because I believe that that denotes shame. And it sets a very, very, very bad example to everybody else that I'm asking to come forward. I don't want other people to be ashamed of what's happened to them, because it's not our shame. It's the perpetrator's shame. It's their sin. It's their crime. It's not our fault. Put it back on them. And that was my message to other victims. That's what I wanted to share. So I think it was like the day before the Royal Commission, like we drafted the statement well and truly before I actually attended the Royal Commission. And it was finalised before that, and I'd signed it. So the statement that you see signed, I agreed to share that information. I did not agree to share my private session. And what else has happened? The Royal Commission has published, I mean, to explain all of this, you remember how I told you how distressed I was at the time of giving evidence at the Royal Commission? Well, the Royal Commission would send me tender bundles. I would get all this information, hundreds and hundreds of documents in a tender bundle. I just could not keep up with it. I was getting like 4 hours sleep a day to do what I was doing with university, and I was still studying. I didn't stop. I was still providing for my kids. I was still looking after my kids. I just didn't have the time or the headspace to go through hundreds of documents that they were sending me in a tender bundle. So I don't say that they didn't tell me that they weren't going to share these documents. I'm saying that I just didn't have the capacity, which they knew about from the beginning. And they knew that I didn't want to share explicit details. So what they did, so the exhibit list on the Royal Commission website, on this exhibit list, they put up criminal court trial transcripts. They put up the explicit charge sheets of the exact offences of my sexual assault. So they're explicit details. They put them up and they published them. And this is something that I want to make sure that everybody knows, whenever you are sharing your story, please ask how this is going to be shared, why it's going to be shared. How do you protect your information? Are you going to be identified? Do you know what? The Royal Commission never told me when I agreed to give evidence and when I was subpoenaed that I would never, ever, ever be able to share my name in connection with BCG. They never told me they were going to take my documents, my handwritten letters, and publish them as exhibits. They never told me they were going to publish my criminal court trial transcripts. They never told me any of this. They never told me that they would take my private session and put it under Creative Commons license to revoke at some point in the future. So now this is 5 years later on. They published all of those details as exhibits, my handwritten letter. And then we have the attack of, I won't say the name, but another person in the ex-Jehovah's Witness community who wanted to write a book about me. It wasn't until 2017 did I realize that all these documents are up there. I'm going, oh my God, holy shit. Like, for God's sakes, they have got all this information up, because this person said they wanted to download every document on the Royal Commission website, all of the exhibits, put them in a book, put his copyright sticker on a book, him make money from it. So when you have somebody's copyright sticker on a book, it means no one else can use that information. You know what? That's not his information. That's my information. Those letters are about me to the Royal Commission. Those letters between the elders of the congregations about me. My handwritten letter was to the Watchtower. You're not taking that and you're not owning it and you're not making money from it. Okay? So that's when I started fighting back in the community. And what this person did, unfortunately, I went into the community under my own name, Shelly Brayo, and nobody knew that I was BCG, because a couple of days before the commission, maybe even on the day of the commission, they said that I had to use a pseudonym, BCG. Now, I did not choose to use a pseudonym. I did not want to use a pseudonym. I want to use my own name. They said that my sisters could be identified. And so I agreed, then fine, okay, whatever. I wasn't switched on enough at that point in time that my name on my statement is Shelly Brayo. That is not the name I was born with. It was not the name I was given. It is no connection to my sisters' names. I don't look like my sisters. I look absolutely nothing like them. I have no connection with any of them in any name, married name or whatever. My name that you see now, Brayo, was made up by my son. So when I split with my daughter's father, I had a choice. I could either go back to my married name, go back to my maiden name, which is my father's name, or I could, so married name, stay in the current name of an abusive partner, or go back to, so hang on, my maiden name, didn't want to do that. Did not want to go back to my married name because I've divorced him. Did not want to go and stay in the same abusive name last name that I was using of my abusive partner. I did not want to use that. So I'm like, oh my goodness, I don't belong anywhere. I started getting emotional. Don't cry much, but I was getting emotional. And my eldest son, Bo Daniel, said to me, "What's wrong, Mum?" And I said, well, I just don't belong anywhere. I had the change of name application. I'm trying to work out what name do I go to? I really don't belong anywhere. You belong with your kids. That's about it. Like, I'm an orphan. So he said to me, "Mum, yeah, you belong with us." He said, "How would you feel if I made a name up for you out of the initials of your children's given names?" That's where Brayo comes from. It is the initials of my children's given names, the names that I chose to give them.
Wow.
So that's where Brayo comes from. So if any of you have any issues with your last name being associated with abuse, you can have the right to change your name. Change your life. And I don't want to be triggered by saying my maiden name ever again. I don't want to even, that name is not even my name, the name I was raised with. I can't even handle hearing the name. So I just changed it. So that's why I got Brayo. And so when, after the Royal Commission, they gave a direction that I was not allowed to publish my name in connection with BCG, I fought it. I fought it straight away. I fought it, I think, about 2 or 3 times. I wrote to them and said, "I want to be able to speak. You've silenced me. You never told me I would not be able to talk about this. It's important to me that I advocate for victims. It's why I studied law. I want to be able, you've silenced me. Religion has silenced me for all this time. Now you're silencing me. I don't want to be silenced. I want to talk. I finally got my voice back. I want to talk about it. I want to advocate for victims." Eventually, I think it was in mid-2017, they decided to lift the pseudonym, and I published that letter. I put that on my Twitter feed. So if anyone wants to see the letter, I blacked out my previous names. But yes, the Royal Commission said that they would allow me to publish Shelly Brayo in connection with BCG. So that's why I'm allowed to publish my name. But anyway, going back to the book that was somebody wanted to write about me. I did the right thing. I even had the moral code of the Jehovah's Witnesses still. I don't know if you all still have that or not. But, hey,
you mean go to the person?
I went to the person first.
Right.
I went to the person privately and I messaged him and I said, "Hey, I heard that you want to write a book about me." This is before he said he's going to download all the exhibits. And I said, "Hey, I could help you with this. I'm BCG, I could help you." And he said, he just ignored that message and he kept squatting on public media. "I'm going to download all the exhibits and blah, blah." But he's ignored my message that I wrote like a long time ago. Pays to check your inbox, dudes. So anyway, I said to him online, like, under my own name, because I'm not embarrassed. I speak up for myself. I said to him, "Hey, don't you think you should be asking these 2 people for consent to write this book?" I mean, and this is something else I want to make really clear. I'm not against journalistic writing about abuse that's reported in the newspapers or Case Study 29. I have no problem. No problem. In fact, I want you to share Case Study 29. But what I do have an issue with is when somebody goes beyond journalistic writing. He is writing about the criminal court trial transcripts of my sexual assaults. He is writing his own opinion on what happened with my sexual assaults. He's writing his own opinion on what happened with the Royal Commission. He knows nothing. He knows nothing about the Royal Commission. Some bloke that can't even be man enough to say his own name on social media. I don't want a man who doesn't know me talking and rewriting my sexual assaults. No way are you putting your grubby fingers on my information. That's how I felt. So anyway, I'm being polite. I tried the other way. I tried privately, and then he's still going on about it. So I said to him, "Hey, do you think that morality-wise, you should maybe, these 2 women have had their consent taken off them their entire life. Do you not think that you should at least ask them for consent?" This is no, guess I got one of them. I don't need the other one. Hey, it's a matter of public record. I can do what I want. They put it out there, I can use it. So you know what happened? I said to him, but you know, like even like the sacrifices, what about even out of respect for people? Like, shouldn't she just have some respect? I mean, these people, these women, I don't know if you know, but they gave up their lives to do this evidence. Shouldn't you have some respect for them? No, I can do what I want. So I said, you know what? You need to check your inbox, dude. When he checked his inbox, guess what he saw? Well, I said to him, I'm BCG and I do consider this your formal legal notice. I do not give you consent to write this book about me. I do not give you consent. And all this guy was concerned about was whether or not he could write about the documents and the other witnesses, and he could use all my documents, which is what, as I previously mentioned, these criminal court trial transcripts, I don't want them published, okay? Because the Royal Commission messed up here. I don't want them published. I want my own rights to choose what I want to share with the public for my career and to help other victims, because that's the bigger goal, right? I've been studying since 2011. I have had 4 hours sleep average every night. I have fought tooth and nail. I have given up so much time with my children and fun and happiness because I've been sitting there all night studying instead. So no, I'm not letting this guy take that off me. So what this guy did, unfortunately, he hopped on his social media page where he was promoting the book, and deceitfully, and I will say this because it was deceitful, he hopped on there and he said, hey, you know what, someone doesn't want me to write the book. He never mentioned it was BCG. He knew it was BCG, never mentioned it. And he got all those people that were following him with the book, and they thought it might have been a Jehovah's Witness person, that these people started attacking him. Oh, tell this person to get a life. Do this, you know, ignore this person. You know what? And so I private messaged many of these people, and I said, you know what, it is my life. It is not just one little portion of my life. It's been every single decade of my life that this guy is wanting to publish in a book, and that's not fair. I have the right to choose what I want to share. So anyway, massive fight on social media, and I know that there were so many Jehovah's Witnesses just want it to be all calm. But we are in the midst of legal change. We are on new ground, and I'm so sorry that, you know, you guys think it's all infighting, but we're fighting for the bigger principle, and the bigger principle is protecting victims' rights to consent. So I then approached there's a couple of institutions like No More Lawyers. They're a legal institution that was set up for to help victims of the Royal Commission. And you know what happened? I approached them. So the Royal Commission has legislation that protects their witnesses from any effects of giving evidence. I approached the Royal Commission. I approached No More Lawyers. No help. No help from No More Lawyers. I approached, my barrister was overseas, so I approached their firm. There was a barrister there, and I really can't remember his name to say thank you, but I'm so grateful for his help. He said to me, approach the Royal Commission, Shelley, and ask them to remove those documents and put a direction not to publish those documents. And to the Royal Commission's credit, Justice McClellan issued a direction not to publish, and he removed those documents from the Royal Commission exhibit list. But what had happened was everybody had already downloaded them beforehand. Now, fast forward, I've seen these specific documents being published online on ex-Jehovah's Witness sites. These bundle of documents that are under a direction not to publish. So let's get to fast forward now. So now I've done my evidence, everything like that. One other thing that I would say is that the reason why I've decided to come out publicly about what really happened with the Royal Commission is not to bag them out. It's to raise a bigger issue about what's happening in society against victims of abuse. So if you all go report my plan is for you to report and take back your power, go get law degrees, go get social, be a social worker, be a psychologist and help victims of abuse and get their voice back. That's my plan for you guys. That's what I want to empower you to do. But if you do this, you may very well end up in my situation. And my situation is that since I gave evidence at the Royal Commission, prior to giving evidence, I never had a problem getting jobs legally. I worked in a mid-tier law firm as a paralegal, just walked into it, didn't have to fight for it. I applied to be a judge's associate. I was one of the 2 finalists for a judge's associate position, which is a very sought after, high profile position. I never had any contacts in the legal industry. The girl that got that job, her father owned a law firm, one of the big law firms in that city. So that's why she got the job above me. But I just got mine just on me. And since that point in time, I've studied and I've done a hell of a lot more, acquired a lot more legal skills and a lot more employable. Do you know what happened after the Royal Commission? Because the Royal Commission asked me to give evidence in case study 29. And I did that. Case study 54 was connected with that. And then they asked me back again to give evidence in case study 57. So I helped them in 3, not 1, 3 case studies, 3 of them. So case study 57, I decided to give it under my own name, Shelly Brayo. So if you Google it, you'll see my statement there. That session was about the nature, causes, and impacts of abuse. I could not mention the Jehovah's Witnesses, but I alluded to them and how damaging it was to me. And it wasn't until that case study did I realize, oh my goodness, I thought I was over the abuse. I thought that because I left the religion, I thought that I was fine. I didn't think I was affected by it anymore. I've fronted my abuser. I've gone to court. I'm moving on. I'm not affected by this abuse anymore. I'm good. So when they asked me to give this evidence in case study 57, I thought I should start preparing for it early since I was short of time. I remember on the plane flight back to Townsville, I'm trying to draft it. You know what? I could not write 1 sentence without bawling, because I then realized at that point that the snowball effects that I'm talking about, they're the reason why I'm having them. It's because it's connected to the abuse, and that's how damaging it has been in my life. Anyway.
Shelly, I don't want you to, I just wanted to interject for just a second, rather. For our YouTube family, thank you for joining us. For our Facebook family, I think Facebook has a limitation of a 4-hour limitation of streaming. No, you're fine. So I don't want it to cut you off on, because I'm listening like this, woo, So I want to say for the last 15, I just want to let you know that it's about 15 minutes before it cuts you off. And then and I think Chessa wanted to say something really quickly. You can take us out, actually.
Okay, Shelly, did you want to finish up what you were saying?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so basically, one of the issues of the Royal Commission is that I approached the Attorney General about publishing my private session. They know that I'm identified in it. They've written letters to these people that are publishing the martyr story on their website, and they're asking them to remove it, and they're not removing it. But what the bigger issue is in society is that after I gave evidence, I was discriminated against because I was a victim. I asked law firms just to volunteer for them, and like a good Jehovah's Witness, I asked for feedback why I didn't get a volunteer position. And I was told by particular law firms verbally that they don't hire victims. They just don't hire them. So I was going to keep all of this quiet. I was going to keep everything quiet about what has happened really about the Royal Commission, but people have attacked my credibility online and through my employment as well. So I am now making this public because the bigger issue is that victims need to be respected, their consent needs to be respected, and if you are going to go study, society needs to change. They need to stop re-victimizing people. That's my message, and that's why I'm coming out with it. There are 6 months now between the redress scheme. So if those who don't know about the redress scheme, with the Australian Royal Commission. It's a compensation scheme. They've given the Jehovah's Witnesses another 6 more months. There's Jehovah's Witnesses and I think another 3 or 4 organisations that have not joined up. So what I'm asking everybody to do from now into the next point in 6 months is to make it public. If you have been an abuse survivor without identifying yourself at all, I want you and everybody else internationally to start gathering the victims in each state. I've got another whole episode on this. My husband and I, Kevin Dean, we are starting a YouTube channel and a website, and we will be talking about what you can do. But what I'm asking everybody to do is to keep child sexual abuse in the media. If you don't keep it in the media in the forefront, it will be forgotten. We have the platform. I wrote a submission to the government in, it was case submission 24 to the National Redress Scheme, and they published parts of my submission in their report. They published 3 things. So as much as people can write letters, unless you're published in a report as actually having something good to say or something of value legally, you really haven't made a difference. So when you are writing stuff, you've got to make sure that it is on point legally. So 3 things. I asked for them to stop delaying. And that was referred to by the Clan Network, with the Clan Network on footnote 4, page 14. The second thing I asked for was revoking the charitable status. That was referred to in footnote 11, along with a whole group of other people. No ex-Jehovah's Witnesses wrote about that. It's just me, along with these other people. The third thing was, and up until I just had a look at it this morning, I asked the Royal Commission to provide a list, like while they provided a list of conforming institutions for sexual abuse, there was no corresponding list for those that were not joining the redress scheme. I asked the the Joint Select Committee for the redress scheme to start naming and shaming these institutions, and that's on footnote 20, and they've done that. So that is, I've contributed, yay, finally. So the only way you can get this resolved is legally. You have to speak up. You have to write to the politicians. There was more that I was going to say about the public interest issue, but we don't have enough time. So
we are running out of time. But you know what, Shelly? We're going to have to have you back if you want to come back.
Because I took too much.
Yes. No, you don't.
No. I mean, we have. Well, Emma does our scheduling, right? We have a part 2. Well, this is part 1 and 2. Okay. So that may be part 3, the Watchtower Victims Memorial Day, where we are going to have a visual for shunning.
Yeah.
And that sort of things. And we can give you a spot there to be able to. But I wanted to say really quickly, while you're on the redress screen, you mentioned something very interesting to us before we came on that some people may not know. And let me know if I'm getting it wrong.
Yeah.
That it's not retroactive.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So one of the key things from the Royal Commission is they can make recommendations to the government. The government has to enact them. So it's up to the government of the day, who's ever in power, to choose to accept them. So one of the recommendations were from the Royal Commission was to enact a criminal institutional offence. So you could charge the companies and the institution for not reporting child sexual abuse. One of the issues of that is, and me and another couple of ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, people I trusted, and it was Irene Shea who did this with me. So thank you, Irene, who did. So that's the person who helped me with this. Now, her and I got my honours thesis. I wrote my honours thesis with a view, because I knew that the recommendations of the Royal Commission, if they made the recommendations to institute a criminal offence for institutions, it would only, and I did a lot of research, I talked to a lot of politicians and senators and political meetings to find this out, it would only take place if that legislation, so say they instituted the December 20 of 2020, December 20, that legislation would only act from that point forwards. It would not act backwards. That means all the victims that have been abused in the institutions would get no justice. And that's why I wrote my honours thesis. So I was trying to find legal ways to hold the institution accountable. And I particularly focused on criminal, because what happens is the governments, you make a complaint to police, but the government steps in and they take over and they use their money. And so then the Watchtower is fighting them with their money. And then, you know what, it's a loggerheads. And this is what you're seeing now with the redress scheme. This is part of my strategy, and I want to share more of it with everyone. But the key point is, we have in Australia criminal legislation that I argued in my honours thesis that we could use right now. In each state, we could use this, and our laws come from the UK. I was talking to Emma about that. It's quite probable that these laws, criminal laws, exist everywhere around the world. And so that's part of my honours thesis, and the girls will probably provide a link for you if you want to read it.
Yeah.
I'll talk more about that.
Most definitely, most definitely. And so I'd just like to say before we close out, I think we got about 10 minutes left before Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg gonna cut us off, y'all. To say, Shelly, thank you so much for coming here with all the information, all the advice. And I don't know, I know you say we talked about religion, but you kind of gave me a little preacher vibe, because you're definitely a motivator.
Oh, I love it.
Definitely a motivator.
I want to inspire. That's part of it. You know, you're all strong women. You know, if I can do a law degree, you all can do a law degree. I'm telling you right now, you have the resilience, you have the intelligence, you can do anything you want. Do not think that you are not educated. I did year 10. I was only a year 10 graduate. That's it. The rest of it is from what I've learned. And if I can do it, you can do it. And if you've been to these meetings, you know how to take notes, and you can definitely study.
So I just wanted to talk about your... Oh, go ahead, Emma.
I'm so glad, Shelly, that you've come so far, despite all the obstacles that have been thrown in your way. You've literally just batted them and just carried on. You are a fucking warrior.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you one thing right now. After this year, it's been this last year since the Royal Commission has been particularly difficult. I just want to say thank you to my husband, and that is Kevin Dean, and he was an ex-elder, and he's picked me up and he's helped me through this, and proposed to me and we got married. So there you go.
Wow. Congratulations.
So I just wanted to give a final word from the glass table, because I don't want us to get cut off before we say this. I think Chess is going to take us out, but Emma, you said something as a last point.
I just wanted to say, like we touched on earlier, infighting. Now, people talk about infighting where it's like, no, if you're going to behave badly, you will get called out. It's not infighting. Just because we're an ex-Jehovah's Witness community, it doesn't mean if you get called out for your bad behavior, it's infighting. We are fighting bad behavior. And that's what I just wanted to say. And the other thing is, support victims. Do not re-victimize victims. They've already been through so much shit to start with. Do not re-victimize them.
And I just want to say something before Chester closes us out, that, you know, a lot of people, we had this in our toxic episode, if you guys missed it. And calling out toxicity does not mean that you're toxic. The environment that Shelly described today is a very toxic environment. If you are a child sex abuse, a CSA activist, be that means you're a CSS activist for Jehovah's Witnesses, for Catholics, for whomever. Yeah. And it's not about our goal. Yes, the Watchtower needs reform. Yes, some of us want the Watchtower to come down. All of us want the Watchtower to come down. But we're not Jehovah's Witnesses anymore. I think, Emma, you mentioned that on our toxic show, where as Jehovah's Witnesses, we're used to being silenced and not calling out bad behavior.
We're also accountable for our own behavior, and lots of people in the community need to learn that.
All right, Chester, so what's the last word for the day?
Oh, gosh.
We got about 7 minutes.
Obviously, we all have a lot more that we could say on this subject, and I really hope to have you back, Shelly. I'm going to be able to do less videos in the next little bit. I've already talked to the girls about it, so I definitely need Shelly, you to come on, other people who feel the same way Shelly does, that recognize that there's a need to implement different changes to the way we're doing things to respect human rights, you know. And I think, you know, whenever you think a survivor is being disingenuous when they tell you that they don't want you to share their information, you have to recognize, like you said, Shelly, we've been giving our dignity away for other people's comfort our entire lives. We've had our dignity and our consent taken advantage of. So if you think that wouldn't be a point of concern for us, or that we would be educated in the different ways that that can happen and where changes need to be made, then you need to educate yourself. And I would say, you know, we need more activists. We need more support. One of the reasons that I'm taking a break is because we need more funding. And so I've been in discussions with like the American Cancer Society and different organizations. I'm getting more back into international business, which I used to do for a number of years. And, you know, I started working at the age of 9. So I know that sounds crazy, but like I have a very long experience in international business. And like Shelly said, you know, all of us doubt ourselves because we feel like we haven't done anything significant enough, when the very survival and intelligence of your being could be the force that changes the world. And we need more people to be able to have a palatable narrative about this. And anybody who wants to be involved in child sexual abuse advocacy, fighting clergy penitential privilege, which is the privilege that gives people the right to silence other people, abolishing the statute of limitations so that people can come forward about their sexual abuse. And it doesn't have to be within a 3-year timeline sometimes. After someone turns the age of 18, that gives someone no time to establish themselves, to be in a safe place where they can come out, okay? We have antique legislation that needs to go, and that includes in our culture. That includes in all of our cultures across communities. And we need to have more palatable narratives. We need to educate ourselves. Mandated reporting. If you are a child sexual advocacy survivor person and someone comes forward to you and says that there's a child in current abuse, and you want to preach about 2-witness rule and Watchtower not coming forward, you could endanger a child if you don't follow things correctly. Mandated reporting is free in most states, okay? Just a few clicks. You go through, you know, reading a couple articles. It's not too hard. Anybody can do it. There's websites that you can go to that are like universities, but they're for free. And you can go and you can educate yourself. Will you get the certification at the end that says you did? No, but you'll have the knowledge to be able to be ethical. And if we call you out, or even if we call out a behavior and you feel like it's a personal affront, so do we. And it's really just about growth. It doesn't have to be about you or me. It's just about growing so that we can achieve something. And, you know, I'm really hoping in 2021 that we'll be able to get the courts back in order around the world and really finally address this in a way that's going to make a change.
All right.
And let's keep standing up. Because like I said earlier, like we're all standing up for our, this year seems a year where we're fucking standing up for our rights. Let's keep speaking out and keep fucking doing this.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why we have this platform. It started off really small because some of us felt voiceless, you know, and some of us felt beaten down, not heard. So we just happen to be women. We do get some, you know, comments because it happened to be a lot of women on there. You know, I think the funniest one, the sea estrogen, I think we got one time, and a bunch of other kind of stuff.
But we've
had male guests. I know. I think it's.
And I love it when we have male guests, so it's not a problem. It's just how it happened.
It's just how it happened.
Listen, this is one of the most intelligent conversations I've heard on this subject from people who actually understand what's going on than I've heard on most channels. And that's not to knock other people doing advocacy or trying to get this stuff out there. It's just saying we need to mature. We need to do things better. And if someone doesn't want to give your consent for you to publish their material, take it off. Don't do it. Just don't do it.
That's flat out. That's it.
And, one other thing, if I can just really quickly say, if somebody has approached you, please just you know what, just say sorry to them. Just go, hey, no problem, we'll just remove it. That's all you have to do. You don't have to attack them. Just, you know, we're all this is a new ground for everybody. We're just trying to be better than the Watchtower. So we're respecting people's rights in our, once we've left, we should respect people's rights.
Especially
respect is what it comes down to.
Right.
Next time we'll look at the consent video.
Yes. We'll get to the consent video, but I did put it in the comments, you guys, so you guys can take a look at it. We're going to go ahead and sign off before Mark Zuckerberg does it for us. See you later.
Thank you so much, ladies. I love it.
Oh, Shelly, don't go anywhere. Don't click off too quick.
All right.